Tens of thousands of people are furious at plans to shake up pensions in France, even though the new scheme hasn't been announced in any detail yet. At the moment, the standard retirement age in France is 62, but dozens of professions have individual regulations, with train drivers retiring as early as 53. These protesters say they're not just defending special interest groups. They believe the reforms will lead to lower pensions for everyone.
The special rules apply to very few people, but even for people who have good jobs now, like me, they're proposing to calculate my pension based on my average contributions over my whole working life, including when I was working as a junior maths teacher at the start of my career, so I could lose about $3,300 a month.
We just want our members, who are nurses and hospital staff, to have a decent pension. Their pensions are already low because we aren't properly compensated unless we reach state retirement age, which is difficult for many nurses because their work is physically difficult, when you're having to physically move patients, for example.
For firefighters, it is hard. We can retire at 55, but many colleagues are physically and mentally exhausted by then.
The government says the changes will make the system more equitable, especially for entrepreneurs and parents who take time off to have children who are losing out under the current system. Polls suggest 2/3 of the population isn't convinced. The last time France saw protests on this scale was in 1995, also over pensions. The government of the time was forced to back down, and every French president since has tried to reform the pension system and been forced to give up. That's why Emmanuel Macron is so determined to push his reform through. He wants to show he can succeed where others failed. The strike is good news for some, including car-sharing apps. A number of them, like peer-to-peer car rental firm WeCar, are offering 10% off.
Demand is up by 35% versus a normal, this normal period of time in the year. So actually, yeah, we have a lot of traction with respect that there is no train on the tracks.
Some hardy Parisians have braved the cold to make it into work on a bike, and many companies have encouraged staff to work from home. Railway unions say they plan to strike indefinitely until the government drops its reform plans, meaning it could be weeks before France gets moving again. Elena Casas, TRT World, Paris.
Now let's bring in Remi Piet, a research associate at the University of Miami's European Union Center. He joins us from New York. Thanks for joining us on the program. Unions that agreed to this nationwide strike say the aim is to shut down the economy. So they've announced they'll extend the transport strike until at least Monday, paralyzing cities. Do you think that they will achieve their goal of paralyzing the economy?
Well, it's a strong power struggle here between the unions on one side and the Macron administration on the other. We have to keep in mind that this reform of the pension system is merely attacking and decreasing the level of pensions for potentially public sector's workers and especially the public transportation. So obviously those are the workers that are likely to go on strike and will be paralyzing Paris and the larger city right now. What Macron is trying to establish right now is a unification of those 42 different pension regimes, some of them actually being quite unfair or benefiting some sectors that were able to, especially the train conductors or the other sectors that were able to block the economy over the past. There are some losers to this reform, especially the nurses, the school professors, and that's why Macron was also very clear on saying that he will try to improve the conditions of working conditions of those workers and the pension regimes down the road. But it's very likely indeed that this movement will continue. It's very important also for the workers' union to make the point that they are the ones able to gather people in the streets after the Yellow Vest movement that actually completely bypassed the union system last year, and they're trying to be able to gather forces. 500,000 of people were in the streets today. It's not as high as people might have expected. Historically, the highest demonstration were actually above 1 million people in 1995. So here right now you're seeing potentially a movement that instead of being able to shut down the entire economy, will still be able to disrupt it for the next coming weeks and months.
Okay, but let's talk about the timing of this, though. We're only a few weeks until Christmas. How bad could this hurt France's economy if the strike drags on beyond the weekend? Because we have some unions, some workers saying that they're willing to go indefinitely.
Well, what's interesting to see is that we're having strike movements even before the actual reform text is out. So usually you at least need to see what are the proposals from the government to be able to oppose them. So we're looking at here a union movement that has decided to be proactive and try to, really pressure the government in terms of limiting the amount of reforms that can be, arising in the future. The impact on the French economy in terms of Christmas, for a lot of the purchasing on Christmas now actually made online, so this probably will not be as impactful as it was 10 or 15 years ago. The impact in terms of capacity of people to go and work every day, we have the history of, in France there's a history of social movements, so therefore a lot of the employers have also been proactive of encouraging working from home on those moments. So I do think that we're not going to be having a complete paralysis of a French economy, but definitely it's going to be impactful in terms of the capacity of transportation system, especially airports are going to be jammed for a couple of weeks, and also the level of trains and public transportation is very limited today.
Okay. All right, we're going to leave it there for now. Remi Piet joining us from New York. Thank you for your time.